Earlier this month, the Reds were ice cold. Now they're red hot, but one thing has stayed consistent. They can pitch.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all the Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code Locked On MLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever they're calling it these days, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, but the best way to get a hold of me is right here. Put a comment down on the old YouTube channel. And hey, stay here on the Locked On MLB feed if you want to hear the latest MLB squad show that we do, where it's once a week. We get together with a bunch of the hosts and we do kind of a round table and, fire our takes back and forth. Or you can stay on the YouTube channel and check out the Locked On MLB Game Night, which gives you a daily Major League Baseball recap. And then you stick around to hear what your pal Sully has to say. And that's what you're doing right now. And thanks so much for joining us. Hey, let's talk about the trivia question. Yesterday was my brother's birthday. Happy birthday, Ted. And I talked about brothers in the Hall of Fame. And I asked which combination of brothers were the only combination of brothers to be both elected into the Hall of Fame. And I got a couple of ones. My dear friend Marcel, Cubs fan, 1908 says, are both Negros in the Hall of Fame? Joe and Phil? No, only Phil is. TMG 6125, Roberto and Sandy Alomar? The answer to that is no. Sandy Alomar is not in the Hall of Fame. We got a couple of people asked about the DiMaggio brothers, because Dom DiMaggio had a great career, was a all-star, but alas, he is not a Hall of Famer. Neither is Vince DiMaggio, who is basically the Zeppo Marx of the DiMaggio brothers. No, John Cox, 1488 says Paul and Lloyd Wainer, both with Pittsburgh. Yes, that is the correct answer. Big Poison and Little Poison. Paul Wainer and Lloyd Wainer are both in the Hall of Fame, and they were both part of the great Pittsburgh teams of the they played in the some of those years where the Pirates put together some really terrific teams, but couldn't quite win themselves a pennant. Paul Wainer played in the 1927 World Series, where they got swept by the Yankees, one of the great teams in baseball history. And Lloyd Wainer came in right around the same time, and they both made it to the Hall of Fame. I know there's some people who aren't sure if Wainer deserves it or not, and that's the answer. There it is. And as I said, it's not Hank Aaron and Tommy Aaron. It's an interesting thing about brothers in the Hall of Fame. Lin-Manuel Miranda, the creator of Hamilton, amongst other shows, is going to be making a project about the multiverse. Lin-Manuel Miranda, who, as I said, wrote the musical of Hamilton, a pop culture touchstone, and was something a lot of us watched during the pandemic. He is from Puerto Rico, and he's creating a film about the Molina brothers, Benji, Jose, and Yadier, who all became World Series catchers. And I don't know if it's going to be a musical or not. I honestly don't know. But you know what? I'll be honest with you. If he was able to make I'm a huge American Revolution buff. I love reading about the American Revolution. It's one of my favorite periods in history, and it's something that I've read way too much about. So, I wasn't stunned that Alexander Hamilton became the source of a compelling stage play. I was a little strange that he was the subject of essentially a hip hop musical, but it worked. And so if he's going to do that to the Molina brothers, do you know what? He's earned the, if he hasn't earned the benefit, who has? I'll tell you who is earning the benefit of the doubt for me is the Cincinnati Reds. The Cincinnati Reds, the team I picked to win the Central. The Cubs are they got off to a terrific start, and they have been playing good teams. Now, they didn't do well against the Phillies over the weekend, but they held their own against teams like Los Angeles, even after winning those first two games in Japan. They held their own against, they split the games in San Diego, and at a time when the Padres were beating the snot out of everybody. They've held their own with the Texas Rangers. They played tough teams, and they're doing well. And earlier this year, the Reds went on a streak where they went on a 4-game losing streak where they gave up a total of 6 runs in 4 games. They held the opposition over 4 games to 6 runs, and they lost all of those games. 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, 3-2. And there was a lot, that was in early April, and people were like, oh, what's going on here? What's going on here? And I felt there was something about that that made me think, this is not, obviously this is not, wasn't good that they lost, they 6 of their first 8 games. But there was something about how they were losing that made me think, wait a minute. They're losing these super close games. And what if they get their act together? If this pitching staff is what I think it is, then this could be a very good team. Now they went on another slump between a couple last week where they didn't play particularly well against Seattle and they lost a couple of games to Miami, but now they're on a 5-game winning streak. Yes, they've been beating teams like Miami and Colorado, but today they beat St. Louis, and it's how they're winning that makes me think, hey, maybe there's something going on here. Nick Martinez, who has not pitched particularly well today. He let up a first inning run and then didn't let up a run for the next, he pitched in the 6th. He let up that first inning run. That's it. Ashcraft, Santillan, and Pagan held them down. Lux, who's been terrific since coming over from Los Angeles. And with that, the Cincinnati Reds wound up winning the game by a score of 3-1. And, Lux doubled twice. Ellie De La Cruz has it now a 12-game hitting streak. And Marte went 1 for 2. He got on base 3 times, including a triple. There's a lot of things worked right there. And Trevino got a home run, but they produced runs, they manufactured runs. McLean got a stolen base. And this is the sort of thing that if you're a Reds fan, you're playing in a winnable division. You know that. And you're not getting great production out of a couple of their spots in the lineup. The first base has not been giving a lot of production. Heimer Candelario has been bad. That's why they're playing Marte there. Lux has been terrific. Spencer Steer has not been. So you're going to start to see Austin Hayes, getting some at-bats there. You're going to see Marte getting those at-bats there. And you take a look at their pitching staff. Nick Martinez was the weak link going into the staff going into today's game, and he pitched great. Andrew Abbott's pitched pretty well. Brady Singer has pitched pretty well. He's won a bunch of games. I don't really look so much at the win-loss record. But the fact that he has won all 4 of his decisions and has a decent ERA, is a good sign. He's struck out more than he has more than 1 strikeout per inning pitch. Nick Lodolo is pitching like an all-star, and Hunter Green is pitching like a potential Cy Young candidate. So they have that depth, and they have another secret weapon. And that secret weapon is Graham Ashcraft. Now, Graham Ashcraft is not the closer. Pagan is the closer, and he's doing fine as the closer. He has a really good strikeout to walk ratio. He's only let up a few runs. He's let up 4 earned runs, and 3 of them are on homers. So, if he keeps the ball in the ballpark, he's not been letting up a run this year. But Graham Ashcraft is the secret weapon for the Reds. This is a guy who was from Huntsville, 6th-round draft pick out of the University of Alabama at Birmingham. Last year, the last few years, he was a nondescript starter for the Reds. 19 starts in 22, 26 year before, 15 last year. Bad ERA, not good splits. And someone thought, hey, what if we put him in the bullpen? Well, I hope whoever came up with that suggestion got a raise, because after 3 years of being the definition of a mediocre starter, with ERA pluses hovering around in the high 80s, low 90s, he has right now thrown 12 and 2/3 innings and has let up one earned run. One, count them. And today he lowered his ERA to 0.71. He pitched 1 inning of relief. He faced 3 batters, and you know what he did? He struck out all 3 of them. He is that weapon that they can bring in that no one can figure him out. They figured him out as a starter. And so maybe that's why he has 10 appearances and he's 11 appearances and has thrown 12 and 2/3 innings. In other words, you get 1 inning out of him. And yeah, I know he's not the closer, but when you have a weapon like that, maybe you shouldn't adhere to what I call the tyranny of the save, which is you put your best reliever, no matter what, to pitch the 9th inning. If you have someone that you can just plop in the game, 6th, 7th, 8th inning, to say, we're going to throw this guy out there and it's going to be 3 outs. They're not going to do anything to him. He lets up, he has 10 hits he's allowed and 7 walks and 10 strikeouts and 13 strikeouts in 12 and 2/3 innings and a microscopic ERA. And leave it to Terry Francona, who was able to use his veteran relievers when he won those 2 World Series with the Red Sox to know how to use his relief pitchers well. But nobody did relief pitching better than when he was handling Cleveland. And he had that weapon in Andrew Miller. Again, someone who didn't cut it as a starting pitcher. And he knew that a lot of times he was his best reliever, and he didn't wait for the 9th. If you're a Reds fan, you trust what Terry Francona is doing. Ashcraft, as of right now, has 1 win and no saves. And that's just fine, because he is someone who is going to shorten some games. And Terry Francona, he knows how to handle a bullpen. And if you are a Reds fan, you have to be thrilled that your issue is the hitting. The hitting will pick up when it starts getting warm there in Cincinnati. And eventually, there will be teams that are going to be trading away a bat or 2. I'm not saying you're going to acquire Aaron Judge or Vladimir Guerrero Jr., but a major league bat here or there in that lineup with this pitching staff could be Operation Atlanta Braves 2021. I didn't panic when I saw that the Reds were losing those games 1-0. I didn't necessarily look at the nothing. I took a look at the 1 and thought, do you know what? This is not so bad. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, on payment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just manage your money, you start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized how much I was spending on subscriptions that I wasn't even using. Now I've cut them and I've budgeted a lot smarter. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check in your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever, and you can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Get in control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. That's Monarch Money. I'm going to read some viewer responses that I've got over the last couple of days. We got a lot of people who have written in. there was, and a couple people, I'm going to read some of the stuff that they wrote. Let me just open up this one file I have here that I have, a couple of people who have written in and basically responding to some of the things about the Tampa Bay Stadium, and also talking about the episode that I did the other day on Jared Duran and the heckle that went above the line. Let's start first with Mike TV. Mike TV. I have a segment of what he wrote. And I'll read the whole thing. I just wrote part of the thing on the banner. He said, "What if the Rays stay in Tampa?" This is the episode I was talking about the Orlando Dreamers. I only asked because the Dreamer Group is vying for an expansion team or an existing franchise. I am guessing their chances are 100% dependent on Rays leaving. I can't imagine there's a strong case for 3 teams in Florida, let alone 2 just 90 minutes from each other. Yeah, the Dreamers are going to get the Rays or an expansion team if the Rays move. Now, if the city of Nashville, who are currently building a new stadium for the Tennessee Titans, if that stadium was a multi-purpose park, I think the Rays would be going there. I absolutely think they would be. Nashville is a terrific market. If they were building a multi-purpose park, they would say, "Look, sorry, we tried it. We've been here for a while now, for more than a quarter century in St. Petersburg, and that's it. It's time to go elsewhere." Again, that's not what I want. I want them to figure out having a team in Tampa. But that's there's not going to be two. There's not going to be 3 teams in Florida. The Marlins and the Rays have had enough stadium issues and attendance issues that they're not going to siphon off. But I do think they're going to keep 2 teams in Florida. They want Miami to work and they want Central Florida to work. And so they're going to figure that out. Now, in terms of the St. Pete area, Adam B6370 wrote he wrote a long piece here, and he says, "You admit you don't know much about this. The area of St. Pete is the problem. Placing a stadium out on the beach literally limited the market to St. Pete and Tampa. It's too isolated for the rest of the state." Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I can't believe the proposed stadium they want to do was basically in the same spot. Now, Adam wrote a lot of things comparing it to certain drives in California. And he said, when forget U.S. tourists, when international tourists come here, they come with large packages set up by tour groups, and often game attendance is part of the American experience for the group. So there is a measurable bump. In the end, it's not about Tampa. St. Pete is one of the most isolated places in the U.S., and it's insane to put a team there. I still think the tourism part of it is overrated, and not to get too much into current events, but I think fewer and fewer international tourists are going to come to the United States, at least for the next couple of years. And I think we can all figure out why. Regarding the Jared Duran and the over the line heckling, his own OO said the guy who heckled him was a piece of crap, to be sure. However, when he went public with his touching story, he had to know that this was a possibility. Yeah, it is a possibility that someone would have used his issues and his suicidal thoughts and everything like that against him, but it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. And let's make sure people know, no, that's not cool. That's not edgy. It's not a freedom of speech thing. I'm just shaming or whatever stupid thing someone like that would say. Let's shame people into saying, hey, you don't talk about someone's suicidal thoughts. You don't talk about someone's mental health. We now know, at least we should know, you shouldn't yell N-bombs at someone when they're coming up to plate, or yell stuff about their ethnicity or their race or their country. You should know that, right? At one point, fans didn't seem to know that. So hopefully we can improve and get better. and not have that stigma of, basically making people feel weak because they have mental issues. Sometimes it shows that they're strong. And speaking of that, Jackson09, who's an everyday Sully listener, there's no way. I mean, um, he said, as someone who played baseball, was in the Marines, and battled hardcore drug addiction, there is light at the end of the tunnel. He said he has also had mental health issues for 20 years. I share this only because of the reason that maybe one person will read it and think differently, if just for a moment. There's light at the end of the tunnel, even when you're 100% convinced it's not. I don't think my comment will make much of a difference to anyone, but in the off chance it does, then the least I can do is give back, considering all I took from life. Hey, Jackson, that's one reason why I wanted to read it. We all have had issues, and there are people out there who struggle and know that there is a stigma to reaching out for help, thinking it makes them weak, for saying they have psychological problems, thinking it makes them weak and makes them, a subject of ridicule. Jackson09, you served in our country with the United States Marines. I don't think you need to qualify your toughness in any way, shape, or form. But yes, that comes out if you deal with the issues of serving our country. Comes with there is collateral damage in that, not just physical, but mentally, and the drug addiction and mental health issues. And that takes a brave person to say that and to tell people, hey, come out the other end. And it'll be people like Jared Duran and Zach Greinke and other people who have not been shy about their mental issues that they've had, to show that you can have great success and still deal with these issues in your life that are real and does not make you a weak person. Now, regarding the heckling and the fact that I think I'm all for removing drinking beer at a ball game, I am all for it. Or my suggestion was basically like Amsterdam in The Wire. They used to have one section where you can drink all you want in there, but the rest of us can enjoy the game. Rivka Meiselman 3375. My daughter won't let me take her kids to the ballpark anymore because of drunk behavior she saw there. Now everyone is sad. Yeah, that's not isolated. It's ballpark tickets are not cheap. They're not cheap. They're pricing families out the same way movies are pricing family out. And when you pay that money, you pay the parking, which is not cheap. You pay the tickets that are not cheap. It's really expensive if you go to, Sacramento. And you buy the helmet with the nachos in it and a hot dog and some Cokes and a Weir number one finger and a baseball and a hat and the final tally could have a comma in it. And so when you're sitting there and there's some horse's ass there who's been drinking all day and screaming, I paid money for this ticket. Yes, so did we. We didn't pay money to look at you. I have no problem saying we're done with drinking at ballparks. Whenever there's a problem, whether it's just someone yelling stupid stuff or someone being a jerk or a fight breaking out or Brian Stowe getting beaten up or the guys jumping on the field to get the Royals first base coach in Chicago, what's the thing that always happens? People are drunk. And do you know what? Do people get drunk at Chuck E. Cheese? Actually, I don't know the answer to that. Do people get drunk at Disneyland? Families show up there. You want families to show up? Let's make it a little more, I don't know, conducive to having your family show up. And if that means losing a little bit of beer sales, as I've said before, you used to have cigarettes sales and cigarette banners as recently as the 1990s. Oh, well, there's too much money to be made from There's too much money made from that. They're gone. And do you know what? Baseball's revenues are up. Let's get those families in there. And I guarantee you, it's not every drunk doing it, but I'd say 9 out of 10 people doing all this bad stuff are plowed. Hey, if you're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nut. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you saturated fats to help you feeling fuller longer. Now, these are my wonderful pistachio of choice. These are the roasted and salted out of the shell. They taste delicious. You got that, they get that burst of energy and that delicious flavor. You're just not getting from a candy bar. You don't get this from package of potato chips. You're getting this from wonderful pistachios. And you get a protein punch. And do you know what it also has? It has the 9 essential amino acids. Did you know that? I didn't. I bet most of your chips you have only have 8 of them. And they got little green wonders that pack a protein punch, but I like them out of the shell because I like that. I don't want to deal with the shell. Just put them right in my hand. Boom, let's go. I got classes to teach and podcasts to record. But some of you like the shells. That's why there's all different types of varieties. And you got to get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Chances are you're hearing this on April 29th. And with that, we want to wish a happy 92nd birthday to Luis Aparicio. Now, with the death of Willie Mays last year, Luis Aparicio has become the oldest living Hall of Famer, Little Louie. Little Louie, native of Venezuela, was he wasn't the first player to come from Central America, South America, the Caribbean, from a Latin country. What are the terms we're supposed to use? But he was probably the first superstar and paved the way for a lot of players coming in. And he was, he was the son of a big star in the Venezuelan league. And he came up, Hank Greenberg, the Indians general manager, didn't want to sign him. He was too short. So he went to Chicago and he went on to have a phenomenal career. He was the rookie of the year in 1956, was an all-star many times over, won 9 gold gloves at shortstop, and became really, along with Nellie Fox, his teammate with the White Sox, put together one of the greatest middle infields in the history of baseball. And when the Yankees were going on that amazing run where they could not be stopped from 1949 to 1964, the Yankees missed the World Series twice. And one of those years were the Chicago White Sox that were led by Little Louie. And he finished second in the MVP vote to Fox that year. He was a star who stole 9 times. Every year between 1956 and 1964, he led the league in stolen bases, played sparkling defense, and got his share of hits. He hit 2,677 hits along the way and stole 506 stolen bases, which before Rickey Henderson was a really, really impressive showing. But the White Sox wound up trading him to bring another Hall of Famer, Hoyt Wilhelm, and Luis Aparicio was sent packing to the Baltimore Orioles. And an interesting thing happened in his 4 years with the Baltimore Orioles. He became an all-star, a Gold Glove winner, and the Orioles went to the World Series. And partly because of the tremendous infield that they had, that included Boog Powell, that included Brooks Robinson and Aparicio, the Orioles swept the Dodgers in the World Series in 1966. And that was the first time the franchise that is currently known as Baltimore Orioles won the World Series. They previously were the St. Louis Browns, and the Browns were so bad they only got into the World Series once, and that was during World War II when most of the great players were off fighting fascism. So that became the ultimate dopey loser franchise with the St. Louis Browns, who became the Baltimore Orioles. And when Aparicio arrived in 63, 3 years later, they finally won a World Series, and he was a huge part of it. Then Mark Belanger became the Orioles shortstop. They traded him back to the White Sox, and he finished his career with the Boston Red Sox, where he was part of a 72 team, but he made a critical mistake in a game where he fell down trying to score in a critical game down the stretch. But I digress. He's a Hall of Famer, a beloved Chicago White Sox player who is a huge, huge figure in the history of the Baltimore Orioles and is, quite frankly, one of the great players in White Sox history and one of the great pioneers of Latin baseball. And he's still with us. He's still alive. And because of that, we should salute him. We should absolutely salute him. But I'm going to bring us to another question here. I mentioned the stolen base that he won, many of them with the Chicago White Sox. Here's a trivia question. We all know Rickey Henderson is the all-time stolen base king. He broke the record that Lou Brock broke. Lou Brock broke the records of stolen bases that Ty Cobb set. Who was the player who was the stolen base king before Ty Cobb? That's the trivia question. Put it right down here in the comment section. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, or whatever they're calling it these days, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully on Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. But yeah, just leave the comments right here on the YouTube page. Talking about the Reds, who are pitching their way back to the win column, answering some viewer mail, and honoring our oldest living Hall of Famer. This is, and wishing him a happy birthday, by the way. This is Locked On MLB. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.